Hello again. How you doing? So I was watching some YouTubes. I was watching Charlie, and I got recommended to read the prologue for Speaker of the Dead. Because we haven't really finished the book in a while. We've kind of just used little sections of books as doorways or gates that we pass through. Where the heck did I put that phone? I'm losing everything. I'm losing my mind. What was I saying? I think apparently my wife may watch him, which is an interesting dichotomy or power dynamic. I don't know where my phone is. Give me a second. I wonder what the transcript would look like right now through the MRI machine. Because I am a jealous god. But he's a cool dude, I think. Possibly, maybe. I never watched him too much during the time. No, seriously, where's that phone? There it is. Anyways. That is bright. Yes. I wrote some notes down about the Bible. If you guys would like to read them with me. I do like being able to write things down because I think a little bit more robotic than I do when I'm speaking to you guys. I feel like I speak very slowly. Sometimes I'll be watching my videos and I'm like, dude, you're taking forever to talk to get to a point. Which is, I don't know. Like I said, I've been very manic. I've been very going and going and going. Anyways, I wrote down a few things. I was watching an Ian stream, and apparently Trump got packed into a container or a cargo container or something like that, something or another, which means Trump represents my ability to poop. It was the Vosh video, Trump is Terrified, which has to be super easy to find, but has a decent explanation on the whole idea of what Trump represents. But then I went to Tumblr and was very upset and posted a POC person, and I called that image Trump, because the ridiculous of the world. And then there was a thing where Trump was sleeping, not sleeping, just kind of had a frown, and his eyes were half closed. And I wrote this down as Trump looks like a puppet from one of Jeff Dunham's shows. His name is Walter, which is hilarious in regards to the story and my action figures. I was while I was after I got done reading the introduction to Xenocide, I was just watching the cars and I was like, little RC cars, which I think is in reference to the idea of when I crossed the border from Mexico to America and went to my Uncle Jaime's house. I may have commented something about within my brain through the MRI machine about excess or something along those lines, maybe. And that was the point that was trying to be made by my uncles, Who knows? Or that they are my RC cars, or something like that. But that was the point that I felt was being made today while I was charging my phone. Oh, by the way, everything is... I have battery. I have like a charge and a half, and I have about 100, and I really need to figure out how much of a charge that laptop gives, because it does charge it at least twice, I want to say, or holds charge for a while, enough for me to I was here with only the laptop as a charge for a night and a half, I want to say. And now I have 30% charge on the light, and then I have 100% charge, 98% charge on this phone. So, as far as like staying connected, I think we're doing pretty good. Now, as far as going to jail goes, I've given up hope. They can send me to jail if they want to. Oh, also, I was thinking of the idea of the Bible, and you know how I continue to say that the Bible, like those who wrestle with God, like that is the idea of the Hebrews, I want to say. That is what Hebrew means, right? Or that's what Judaism is? I don't know. And then I was thinking about the Bible. I think I was watching a Stephen stream, and I was thinking of the idea of the Bible as like a debate platform. Like we take breaks between the reading of the Bible to like add little like addendums and caveats and like kind of give like our own perspective on it, which brings in the fallibility of God. Okay, so the first thing that I wrote was those who wrestle with God, capital G, and then I said the Bible is a debate. Taking breaks between reading the Bible brings into question the fallibility of God, small g, in context of everybody around. And then I wrote another thing about the Bible that was about the Bible and the path. Blue eyes, your eyes are blue. And then on my iPhone, while I was in the bathroom, did I not take a picture of it? I didn't. Give me a second. Alright, I'm back, sorry. And then while I was on the porta potty, I wrote, the Bible as a justification for human trafficking. A way to convince you your eye is blue. Like the Bible says, you know, everything has to be coded blue. Everything has to be coded blue. Which, again, I like. I like the color purple. But then, a way to convince you your eye is blue. Then because your eye is blue, death. Which is fair. I see no issues. And then, you know, we, like, brings into question, like, the literal meanings of these words, and then how white supremacy is bred from reading, like, not through all the Zionist language or not interacting with the Bible in any critical sense, leads to white supremacy instead of the supremacy of God. You know what I'm saying? Blue eyes survive. That's something I got from TikTok, but yeah. Anyways, I've been very upset over the last few days. So yeah. Hello. Yeah. Okay. Speaker for the dead. I love this series. It's one of my favorites. Why was so bright? Sure, why not? The sequel to the Hugo and Nebula Award-winning Ender's Game. A great read. Up reviews. The Hugo Award and the Nebula Award. Dude, oh, dude. Dude. Wait, where are you? Where are you? Look. You see those, stars? It's like the hotel was just a few weeks ago. Dude, I posted something on TikTok from a month and a half ago. 2 months ago. I can't believe I was just in that house 2 months ago. Alright, whatever. I need some water. And some weed. And some vape. And my wife. If anybody knows where my wife is, that would be greatly appreciated. Do I have a crits? I feel like we should read something from Lacan today. Where's my airplane cookies? There they are. 1 second. Alright. I'm back. We can begin. Maybe. I want some back support. Okay. Speaker for the dead. For Greg Kaiser, who already knew how. Contents. Introduction. Some people of Lusitania. Pronouncing foreign names. Prologue. 1. Pipo. 2. Trondheim. 3. Lebo. 4. Ender. 5. Valentine. 6. Oleado. 7. The Riviera family. 8. Donna Ivanova. 9. Congenital defect. 10. Children of the mind. 11. Jane. 12. Files. 13. Ella. 14. Renegades. 15. Speaking. 16. The Fence. 17. The Wives. 18. The Hive Queen. Introduction. Speaker for the Dead is a sequel, but it didn't begin life that way. And you don't have to read it in that way either. It was my intention all along for it was my intention all along for Speaker to be able to stand alone. For it to make sense whether you have read Ender's Game or not. Indeed, in my mind, this was the real book. If I hadn't been trying to write Speaker for the Dead back in 1983, there would never have been a novel version of Ender's Game at all. How did Speaker for the Dead come to be? As with all my stories, this one began with more than one idea. The concept of a Speaker for the Dead arose from my experiences with death and funerals. Part of the reason why I really like this book was because it's kind of like, what's it called? That one anime with the blonde chick that was a child soldier, and then she becomes like a letter writer or something along those lines. I really, really like that anime. And Speaker for the Dead for me is kind of that. At the end of the first book, he kind of gives his eulogy for the Hive Queen and the planet that he destroyed. And Speaker for the Dead was essentially like a reparation of trauma within a family unit through him, and it was really, I really liked it. That saga, that quartet became one of my favorite books, became instrumental in who I became as a person, I think. The boat scene is one of my favorites. The fact that that wasn't in the movie really, really upset me. The idea, like, yeah, leaving the school, actually, like, that's pretty much, wow. I think we're gonna go to that chapter. Yeah, I think we'll download Ender's Game and we'll go to that chapter, because that chapter is... Yeah, we'll do that after this. But yeah, when he, like, comes down from battle school, and he's like, I think I killed a person. I don't want to go back, because he looked dead in his eyes. Yeah, let's read that. Give me a second. Por favor. Also, I was thinking of the idea of languages. Outside of, like, this alien language that we have, I was thinking of like one language being spoken throughout the world, and I think that language is to be English, I believe. Okay, let's find where. Chapter 14? No. Okay, it says chapter 13, so. Okay. Okay, chapter 13. Valentine. This is... Okay, so this is right here is like a transcript between people. Between the engineers, the powers that be, watching, and the commanders of the battle school that create the child soldiers. They're the ones that are speaking right now. Children, brothers. Oh, dude. I really love this series. I think we should read it. Okay. Children. Okay. We're gonna read Speak Up for the Dead first. We're gonna save Ender's Game. We're gonna save that chapter. Remind me, chapter 13. We might just go for a while here. While I was watching Charlie, it did say something about being cozy, so. And it was cozy here. And that boat scene is cozy. Children, brother and sister, they had layered themselves 5 times through the nets. This is Ender's Game, chapter 13, by the way. Writing the companies that paid for their memberships, that sort of thing. Devil of a time tracking them down. What are they hiding? Could be anything. The most obvious thing to hide, though, is their ages. The boy's 14, the girl is 12. Which one is Demosthenes? The girl. The 12-year-old. Pardon me. I don't really think it's funny. But I can't help but laugh. All this time we've been worried. All that time we've been trying to persuade the Russians not to take Demosthenes too seriously. We held up Locke as proof that Americans weren't all crazy warmongers. Brother and sister. Prepubescent. And their last name is Wiggin. Ah, coincidence? The Wiggin is a third. They are 1 and 2. Oh, excellent. The Russians will never believe. The Demosthenes and Locke aren't as much under our control as the Wiggin. Is there a conspiracy? Is someone controlling them? We haven't been able to detect no contact between these 2 children and any adult who might be directing them. That is not to say that someone might not have invented some method you can't detect. It's hard to believe that 2 children. I interviewed Colonel Graff when he arrived from the battle school. It is his best judgment that nothing these children have done is out of their reach. Their abilities are virtually identical with the Wiggin. Only their temperaments are different. What surprised him, however, was the orientation of the 2 personas. Demosthenes is definitely the girl, but Graff says the girl was rejected from battle school because she was too pacific too conciliatory, and above all, too empathetic. Definitely not Demosthenes. And the boy has the soul of a jackal. Wasn't it Locke that was recently praised as the only truly open mind in America? It's hard to know what's really happening. But Graff recommended, and I agree, that we should leave them alone, not expose them. Make no report at this time except that we have determined that Locke and Demosthenes have no foreign connections, and have no connections with any domestic group either, except those publicly declared on the nets. In other words, give them a clean bill of health. I know Demosthenes seems dangerous, in part because he or she has such a wide following, but I think it's significant that the one of the two of them who is most ambitious has chosen the moderate, wise persona, and they're still just talking. They have influence but no power. In my experience, influence is power. If we ever find them getting out of line, we can easily expose them. Only in the next few years. The longer we wait, the older they get, and the less shocking it is to discover who they are. You know what the Russian troop movements have been? There's always the chance that Demosthenes is right, in which case, we'd better have Demosthenes around. All right, we'll show them clean, for now. But watch them. And I, of course, have to find ways of keeping the Russians calm. In spite of all her misgivings, Valentine was having fun being Demosthenes. Her column was now being carried in practically every news net in the country. And it was fun to watch the money pile up in her attorney's accounts. Every now and then, she and Peter would, in Demosthenes' name, donate a carefully calculated sum to a particular candidate or cause. Enough money that the donation would be noticed. I bought Mara, but not so much that the candidate would feel she was trying to buy a vote. She was getting so many letters now that her Newsnet had hired a secretary to answer certain classes of routine correspondence for her. The fun letters from national and international leaders, sometimes hostile, sometimes friendly, always diplomatically trying to pry into Demosthenes' mind. Those she and Peter read together, laughing in delight sometimes that people like this were writing to children and didn't know. Sometimes, though, she was ashamed. Father was reading Demosthenes regularly. He never read Locke, or if he did, he said nothing about it. At dinner, though, he would often regale them with some telling point Demosthenes had made in that day's column. Peter loved it. Peter loved it when Father did that. See, it shows that the common man is paying attention. But it made Valentine feel humiliated for Father. If he ever found out that all this time he was writing the columns he told us about, and that I didn't even believe half the things I wrote, he would be angry and ashamed. At school, she once nearly got them in trouble. When our history teacher assigned the class to write a paper contrasting the views of Demosthenes and Locke as expressed in two of their early columns, Valentine was careless and did a brilliant job of analysis. As a result, she had to work hard to talk the principal out of having her essay published in the very Newsnet that carried Demosthenes' column. Peter was savage about it. You write too much like Demosthenes. You can't get published. I should kill Demosthenes now. You're getting out of control. If he raged about that blunder, Peter frightened her still more when he went silent. It happened when Demosthenes was invited to take part in the President's Council on Education for the Future, a blue ribbon panel that was designed to do nothing, but do it splendidly. Valentine thought Peter would take it as a triumph, but he did not. Turn it down, he said. Why should I, she asked. It's no work at all. And they even said that because of Demosthenes' well-known desire for privacy, they would net all the meetings. It makes Demosthenes into a respectable person, and you love it that you got that before I did. One thing about the blue, there's a reason why the flag that I have is purple. I was talking to some YouTuber, I don't remember who. There's a few YouTubers that I watch. If I want to watch Satan, I'll watch Andre Jick. That's a lie. I'm very pissed that he made me bankrupt. Then there's Steven, Ian, who might be dead. I'm not sure. Charlie, and Alexander, I think. Those are the people that I've been watching right now. But I was talking to someone, or watching someone earlier, and as I was walking past, as I was talking, we got to talking about the flag and the color blue. Those notes that I wrote were while I was kind of interacting and debating with the person that I was watching, and I was thinking of the idea of the blue within the Bible that says, everything has to be covered in blue, and the counterposition of that being red, and then the synthesis of both would be purple. So I was happy about the flag that I have. But then as I was saying that, someone walked by and it was purple and orange, which is upsetting because my flag is purple and black, and I tend to wear a lot of white shirts, and within the religion everybody's supposed to wear white shirts at the end of times. So who knows? Again, dialectics and all that kind of stuff, but I would there's too much gothic stuff in the world. We need more white shirts. Is that a thing? If that's some crazy radical whatever, I don't care anymore. I'm tired. Peter, it isn't you and me. It's Demosthenes and Locke. We made them up. They aren't real. Besides, this appointment doesn't mean they like Demosthenes better than Locke. It just means that Demosthenes has a much stronger base of support. You knew he would. Appointing him pleases a larger number of Russian haters and chauvinists. It wasn't supposed to work this way. Locke was supposed to be the respected one, which I think is Speaker for the Dead, possibly. He is. Real respect takes longer than official respect. Peter, don't be angry at me because I've done well with the things you told me to do. Is that Jane talking to me? Listen, so sometimes I forget that you guys are watching this and you guys are being put into the perspective of whatever I'm talking about. I'm talking to you like a person, and I forget that you're a person. I forget that people exist. I'm talking to nobody. But he was angry. for days. Also, days is a word. Trans. Ever since then, he had left her to think through all her own columns. Instead of telling her what to write, he probably assumed that this would make the quality of Demosthenes' columns deteriorate. But if it did, no one noticed. Perhaps made him even angrier that she never came to him weeping for help. She had been Demosthenes too long now to need anyone to tell her what Demosthenes would think about things. And as her correspondence with other politically active citizens grew, she began to learn things, information that simply wasn't available to the general public. Certain military people who corresponded with her dropped hints about things without meaning to. And she and Peter put them together to build up a fascinating and frightening picture of Warsaw Pact activity. They were indeed preparing for a war, a vicious and bloods, earthbound war. Demosthenes wasn't wrong to suspect that the Warsaw Pact was not abiding by the terms of the League, and the character of Demosthenes gradually took on a life of his own. At times, she found herself thinking like Demosthenes at the end of a writing session, agreeing with ideas that were supposed to be calculated poses. Sometimes she read Peter's Locke essays and found herself annoyed at his obvious blindness to what was really going on. Perhaps it's impossible to wear an identity without becoming what you pretend to be. She thought of that, worried about it for a few days, and then wrote a column using that as a premise to show that politicians who toadied to the Russians in order to keep the peace would inevitably end up subservient to them in everything. It was a lovely bite at the party in power, and she got a lot of good mail about it. She also stopped being frightened of the idea of becoming, to a degree, Demosthenes. He's smarter than Peter, and I ever gave him credit for, she thought. Graf was waiting for her after school. He stood leaning on his car. He was in civilian clothes, and he had gained weight, so she didn't recognize him at first. But he beckoned to her, and he could introduce himself. And before he could introduce himself, she remembered his name. I won't write another letter, she said. I never should have written that one. You don't like medals then, I guess. Not much. Come for a ride with me, Valentine. I don't ride with strangers. He handed her a paper. It was a release form. And her parents had signed it. The reason why I got on here was because I was scrolling through my own Facebook, and the things that I had shared through time were like, there was one where like it was pointing at me. It was like, go live. And I was like, yeah, all right. But I was gonna read Speaking for the Dead, but I don't even know how to begin to explain all of that. And I don't know. I miss my wife, and I really like the boat scene. And there was this one moment where we were like smoking together, and it was really good stuff. And she ended up like grabbing onto me and laughing, and she's like, "You're my boat." So yeah, I'm reading about a boat, and I'm reading about a respite from the days. I'll smoke some weed though, give me a second. Goodness gracious. I'm almost out of airplane cookies. Oh, my mom got me some crackers. I guess you're not a stranger. Where are we going? To see a young soldier who is in Greensboro on leave. She got in the car. Ender's only 10 years old, she said. I thought you told us the first time he'd be eligible for a leave when he was 12. He skipped a few grades. So he's doing well. Ask him when you see him. Why me? Why not the whole family? Graf sighed. Ender sees the world his own way. We had to persuade him to see you. As for Peter and your parents, he was not interested. Life at the battle school was intense. What do you mean? He's gone crazy? On the contrary, you're the sanest person I know. He's sane enough to know that his parents are not particularly eager to reopen a book of affection that was closed quite tightly 4 years ago. As for Peter, we didn't even suggest the meeting, and so he didn't have a chance to tell us to go to hell. They went out Lake Brant Road and turned off just past the lake, following a road that wound down and up until they came to a white clapboard mansion that sprawled along the top of a hill. It looked over Lake Brant on one side and a 5-acre private lake on the other. This is the house that Medley Mist E. Rubb built, said Graf. The LF picked it up in a tax sale about 20 years ago. Ender insisted that his conversation with you should not be bugged. I promised him it wouldn't be. And to help inspire confidence, the two of you are going out on a raft he built himself. I should warn you, though. I intend to ask you questions about your conversation when it is finished. You don't have to answer, but I hope you will. I didn't bring a swimming suit. We can provide one. One that isn't bugged? At some point, there must be trust. For instance, I know who Demosthenes really is. She felt a thrill of fear run through her, but said nothing. I've known since I landed from the battle school. There are perhaps 6 of us in the world who know his identity. Not counting the Russians. God only knows what they know, but Demosthenes has nothing to fear from us. Demosthenes can trust our discretion. Just that I trust Demosthenes not to tell Locke what's going on here today. Mutual trust. We tell each other things. That is a big claim from the book. Remember, deny, defer, accept, what have you. Valentine couldn't decide whether it was Demosthenes they approved of or Valentine Wigan. If the former, she would not trust them. If the latter, then perhaps she could. The fact that they did not want her to discuss this with Peter suggested that perhaps they knew the difference between them. She did not stop to wonder whether she herself knew the difference anymore. You said he built the raft. How long has he been here? 2 months. You meant his leave to last only a few days. But you see, he doesn't seem interested in going on with his education. Oh, so on therapy again. This time we can't censor your letter. We're just taking our chances. We need your brother badly. Humanity is on the cusp. This time Val had grown up enough to know just how much danger the world was in. And she had been Demosthenes long enough that she didn't hesitate to do her duty. Where is he? Down at the boat slip. Where's the swimming suit? Andrew didn't wave when she walked down the hill toward him. Didn't smile when she stepped onto the floating boat slip. But she knew that he was glad to see her. Knew it because of the way his eyes never left her face. You're bigger than I remember, she said stupidly. You too, he said. I also remember that you were beautiful. Memory does play tricks on us. No. Your face is the same, but I don't remember what beauty means anymore. What beautiful means anymore. Come on. Let's go out into the lake. She looked at the small raft with misgivings. Don't stand up on it, that's all, he said. He got on by crawling, spider-like on toes and fingers. It's the first thing I built with my own hands since you and I used to build with blocks. Peter-proof buildings. She laughed. They used to take pleasure in building things that would stand up even when a lot of the obvious supports had been removed. Peter in turn liked to remove a block here and there, so the structure would be fragile enough that when the next person to touch it would knock it down. Peter was an ass, but he did provide some focus to their childhood. Peter's changed, she said. If this book was like an AI-generated book in the same vein that the books from the jail, I almost said library, or like manufactured at the point of my creation or something along those lines. Books that were placed specifically at specific times, given to me at specific times. Because that thing about the ass, if this book came out, I read this book in 5th grade, I want to say. Something like that. Like, not to like toot my own horn, but like, I genuinely don't know if there's anybody that like I genuinely do think that like, I do think I am a savant in some sense. I don't know why. Anyways, my mother used to call me burro. So, the ass thing is funny. Peter's changed, she said. Let's not talk about him, said Ender. All right. She crawled onto the boat. Not as deftly. Okay, what I mean by that is like, through the MRI machine, there had to be, like, through those moments where I did, like, really weird things, like, okay, to be fair, I think it's pretty obvious how the reproductive system works, even at that age. Kids have autonomy, right? I don't know. What makes a person? I swear to God, if someone says the ass one more time, I'm gonna freak out. She crawled onto the boat, not as deftly as Ender. He used the paddle to maneuver them slowly toward the center of the private lake. She noticed aloud that he was sunburned and strong. The strong part comes from battle school. The sunbrowning comes from this lake. I spend a lot of time on the water. When I'm swimming, it's like being weightless. I miss being weightless. Also, when I'm here on the lake, the land slopes up in every direction, like living in a bowl. I lived in a bowl for 4 years. So we're strangers now? Aren't we, Valentine? No, she said. She reached out and touched his leg. And suddenly she squeezed his knee, right where he had always been most ticklish. But almost at the same moment, he caught her wrist in his hand. His grip was very strong, even though his hands were smaller than hers, and his own arms were slender and tight. For a moment he looked dangerous. Then he relaxed. "Oh yes," he said. "You used to tickle me." In answer, she dropped herself over the side of the raft. The water was clear and clean, and there was no chlorine in it. She swam for a while, then returned to the raft and lay on it in the hazy sunlight. A wasp circled her, then landed in the raft beside her head. She knew it was there and ordinarily would have been afraid of it. But not today. Let it walk on this raft. Let it bake in the sun as I'm doing. Then the raft rocked, and she turned to see Ender calmly crushing the life out of the wasp with one finger. "These are a nasty breed," Ender said. "They sting you without waiting to be insulted first." He smiled. "I've been learning about preemptive strategies. I'm very good. No one ever beat me. I'm the best soldier they ever had." "Who would expect less?" she said. "You're a Wigan." "Whatever that means," he said. "It means that you are going to make a difference in the world." And she told him that she told him what she and Peter were doing. I read this at age 5, and my father told me I was going to be president at 3rd grade. This at 5th grade. My father told me I was going to be president at 3rd grade. Yeah. So it had to be a thing. How old is Peter? 14? Already planning to take over the world? He thinks he's Alexander the Great. And why shouldn't he be? Why shouldn't you be too? We can't both be Alexander. Two faces of the same coin. And I am the metal in between. Even as she said it, she wondered if it was true. She had shared so much with Peter these last few years that even when she thought she despised them, she understood him. While Ender had been only a memory till now. A very small, fragile boy who needed her protection. Not this cold-eyed, dark-skinned manling who kills wasps with his fingers. Maybe he... I started posting on my Instagram as well. Somos de Barrios. I might change it to an untitled podcast, but apparently someone took that within the username, so I might delete my untitled podcast one and change the name of this one. But I think it's kind of funny, like in an ironic sense. I mean, yeah, it's an apt name. Somos de Barrios. Give me a second. Maybe he and Peter and I are all the same, and have been all along. Maybe we only thought we were different from each other out of jealousy. The trouble with coins is when one faces up, the other faces down. Oh, there's another thing about coins and like how your intestinal tract like creates coins. And right now you think you're down. They want me to encourage you to go on with your studies. They aren't studies, they're games. All games from beginning to end. Only they change the rules whenever they feel like it. He held up a limp hand. See the strings? But you can use them too. Only if they want to be used. Only if they think they're using you. No, it's too hard. I don't want to play anymore. Just when I think I can handle things, they stick in another knife. I keep having nightmares now that I'm here. I dream I'm in the battle room, only instead of being weightless, they're playing games with gravity. They keep changing its direction, so I never end up on the wall I launched for. I never end up where I meant to go. I keep pleading with them just to let me take a shit, just to let me get to the door. And they won't let me out. They keep sucking me back in. She heard the anger in his voice and assumed it was directed at her. I suppose that's what I'm here for, too. I suppose that's what I'm here for. To suck you back in. I didn't want to see you. They told me. I was afraid that I'd still love you. I hoped that you would. My fear, your wish, both granted. Ender, it really is true. We may be young, but we're not powerless. We play by their rules long enough, and it becomes our game. She giggled. I'm on a presidential commission. Peter is so angry. They didn't let me use the nets. There isn't a computer in the place except the household machines that run the security system and the lighting. Ancient things installed back a century ago when they made computers that didn't hook up with anything. They took away They took away my army. They took away my desk. And you know something? I don't really mind. You must be good company for yourself. Not me. My memories. Maybe that's who you are. What you remember. No. My memories are strangers. My memories of strangers. My memories of it says the buggers there, but I'm just gonna leave it at my memories of. My memories of connection, or of being apart. Valentine shivered as a cold breeze had suddenly passed. I refused to watch the bugger vids anymore. They're always the same. I used to study them for hours. The way their ships move through space, and something funny that only occurred to me lying out here on the lake. I realized that all the battles in which buggers and humans fought hand to hand, all those are from the first invasion. All the scenes from the second invasion, when our soldiers are in the IF uniforms. IDF? The IF uniform. Yeah, the IF uniforms. Nice. In those scenes, the buggers are always already dead, lying there slumped over their controls. Not a sign of struggle or anything. In Mazer Rockham's battle, they never show us any footage from that battle. Maybe it's a secret weapon. No. I don't care about how we killed them. It's the buggers themselves. I don't know anything about them. And yet, someday I'm supposed to fight them. I've been through a lot of fights in my life. Sometimes games, sometimes not games. Every time, I've won because I could understand the way my enemy thought. From what they did, I could tell what they thought I was doing, how they wanted the battle to take shape. And I played off that. I'm very good at that. Understanding how other people think. The curse of the Wigan children, she joked. But it frightened her. That Ender might understand her as completely as he did his enemies. Peter always understood her, or at least thought he did. But he was such a moral sinkhole that she never had to feel embarrassed when he guessed even her worst thoughts. But Ender, she did not want to understand her. She did not want him to understand her. It would make her naked before him. She would be ashamed. You don't think you can beat the buggers unless you know them. It goes deeper than that. Being here alone with nothing to do. I've been thinking about myself too. Trying to understand why I hate myself so badly. No, Ender. Don't tell me no, Ender. It took me a long time to realize that I did. But believe me, I did. Do. I came down to this. In the moment when I truly understand my enemy. understand him well enough to defeat him, then in that very moment I also love him. I think it's impossible to really understand somebody, what they want, what they believe, and not love them the way that they love themselves. And then, in that very moment when I love them, you beat them. For a moment, she was afraid of his understanding. No, you don't understand. I destroy them. I make it impossible for them to ever hurt me again. I grind them until they don't exist. Of course you don't. And now the fear came again, worse than before. Peter has mellowed, but they've made you into a killer. Two sides of the same coin, but which side is which? I've really hurt some people. Wow. I'm not making this up. I know, Ender. How will you hurt me? See what I'm becoming, Val? He said softly. Even you are afraid of me. And he touched her cheek gently, so gently that she wanted to cry. Like the touch of his soft baby hand when he was still an infant. She remembered that. The touch of his soft and innocent hand on her cheek. I'm not, she said. And in the moment it was true. You should be. No, I shouldn't. You're going to shrivel up if you stay in the water. Also, the sharks might get you. He smiled. The sharks learned to leave me alone a long The sharks learned to leave me alone a long time ago. But he pulled himself onto the raft, bringing a wash of water across it as it tipped. It was cold on Valentine's back. Ender, Peter's going to do it. He's smart enough to take the time it takes. But he's going to win his way into power. If not right now, then later. I'm not sure yet whether that'll be a good thing or a bad thing. Peter can be cruel, but he knows the getting and keeping of power. And there are signs that once the bugger war is over, and maybe even before it ends, the world will collapse into chaos again. The Warsaw Pact was on its way to hegemony before the first invasion, if they try for it afterward. So even Peter might get a better alternative. You've been discovering some of the destroyer in yourself, Ender. Well, so have I. Peter didn't have a monopoly on that, whatever the testers thought. And Peter has some of the builder in him. He isn't kind, but he doesn't break every good thing he sees anymore. Once you realize that power will always end up with the sort of people who crave it, I think that there are worse people who could have it than Peter. With that strong a recommendation, I could vote for him myself. Sometimes it seems absolutely silly. A 14-year-old boy and his kid sister plotting to take over the world. She tried to laugh. It wasn't funny. We aren't just ordinary children, are we? None of us. Don't you sometimes wish we were? She tried to imagine herself being like the other girls at school. Tried to imagine life if she didn't feel responsible for the future of the world. It would be so dull. I don't think so. And he stretched out on the raft, as if he could lie on the water forever. It was true. Whatever they did to end her at the battle school, they had spent his ambition. He really did not want to leave the sun-warmed waters of this bowl. No, she realized. No. He believes that he doesn't want to leave here. But there is still too much of Peter in him, or too much of me. None of us could be happy for long, doing nothing. Or perhaps it's just that none of us could be happy living with no other company than ourselves. So she began to prod again. What is the one name that everyone in the world knows? Mesa Rockham. And what if you win the next war the way Mesa Rockham did? Mesa was a fluke, a reserve. Nobody believed in him. He just happened to be at the right place at the right time. But suppose you did. Suppose you beat the buggers, and your name's known the way Mesa Rockham's name is known. Let somebody else be famous. Peter wants to be famous. Let him save the world. If you're watching this in the future, go ahead, burn it to the ground. I'm not talking about fame, Ender. I'm not talking about power either. I'm talking about accidents. Just like the accident that Mesa Rockham happened to be the one who was there when somebody had to stop the buggers. If I'm here, Ender said, then I won't be there. Somebody else will. Let them have the accident. His tone of wary unconcern infuriated her. I'm talking about my life, you self-centered little bastard. If her words bothered him, he didn't show it. Just lay there, eyes closed. When you were little and Peters tortured you, it's a good thing I didn't lie back and wait for Mom and Dad to save you. They never understood how dangerous Peter was. I knew you had the monitor, but I didn't wait for them either. Do you know what Peter used to do to me because I stopped him from hurting you? Shut up, Bender whispered, because she saw that his chest was trembling. Because she knew that he had indeed hurt, because she knew that she had indeed hurt him. Because she knew that just like Peter, she had found his weakest place and stabbed him there. She felt silent. I can't beat them, Andrew said softly. I'll be out there like Mesa Rockham one day, and everybody will be depending on me, and I won't be able to do it. If you can't, Ender, then nobody could. If you can't beat them, then you deserve to win because they're stronger and better than us. It won't be your fault. Tell it to the dead. If not you, then who? Anybody. Nobody, Ender. I'll tell you something. If you try and lose, then it isn't your fault. But if you don't try and we lose, then it's all your fault. You killed us all. I'm a killer no matter what. What else should you be? Human beings didn't evolve brains in order to lie around on lakes. Killing's the first thing we learned, and a good thing we did, or we'd be dead, and the tigers would own the earth. The middle school, they changed the mascot to the tigers here, last year, I think, which is, I had issues with it at the time. I don't like change too much. I could never be Peter. No matter what I said or did, I never could. So I came back to Peter. He was years older than you, and stronger. So are the boogers. She could see his reasoning, or rather his unreasoning. He could win all he wanted, but he knew that in his heart that there was always someone who could destroy him. He always knew that he had not really won, because there was Peter, undefeated champion. You want to be Peter? She asked. No, he answered. Beat the buggers, then come home and see who notices Peter Wiggin anymore. Look him in the eye when all the world loves and reveres you. That'll be defeat in his eyes, Ender. That's how you win. You don't understand, he said. Yes, I do. No, you don't. I don't want to beat Peter. Then what do you want? I want him to love me. She had no answer. As far as she knew, Peter didn't love anybody. Ender said nothing more. Just lay there. And lay there. Finally, Valentine, the sweat dripping off her. The mosquitoes beginning to hover at the desk as the dusk came on. Took one final dip in the waters, then began to push the raft onto shore. Ender showed no sign that he knew what she was doing, but his irregular breathing told her that he was not asleep. When they got to shore, she climbed onto the dock and said, I love you, Ender, more than ever, no matter what you decide. He didn't answer. She doubted that he believed her. She walked back up the hill, savagely angry at them for making her come to Ender like this. For she had, after all, done just what they wanted. She had talked Ender into going back into his training, and he wouldn't soon forgive her for that. Ender came in the door, still wet from his last dip in the lake. It was dark outside and dark in the room where Graf waited for him. Are we going now? Asked Ender. If you want to, said Graf. When? When you're ready. Ender showered and dressed. He was finally used to the way civilian clothes fit together. But he still didn't feel right without a uniform or a flash suit. I'll never wear a flash suit again, he thought. That was the battle school game, and I'm through with that. He heard the crickets chirping madly in the woods, in the near distance. He heard the crackling sound of a car driving slowly on gravel. What else should he take with him? He had read several of the books in the library, but they belonged to the house, and he couldn't take them. The only thing he owned was the raft he had made with his own hands. That would stay here too. The lights were on now in the room where Graf waited. He too had changed clothing. He was back to uniform. They sat in the back seat of the car together, driving along country roads to come at the airport from the back. Back when the population was growing, said Graf, they gave this area and woods and farms. They kept this area in woods and farms, watershed land. The rainfall here starts a lot of rivers flowing, a lot of underground water moving around. The earth is deep and right to the heart. It's alive, Ender. We people only live on the top, like the bugs that live on the scum of the still water near the shore. Ender said nothing. We train our commanders the way we do because that's what it takes. They have to think in certain ways. They can't be distracted by a lot of things, so we isolate them. You keep you separate. And it works. But it's so easy when you never meet people. When you never know the earth itself. When you live with metal walls keeping you out of the cold of space. It's easy to forget why earth is worth saving. Why the world of people might be worth the price you pay. So that's why you brought me here, thought Ender. With all your hurry, that's why you took 3 months to make me love Earth. Well, it worked. All your tricks worked. Valentine, too. She was another one of your tricks to make me remember that I'm not going to school for myself. Well, I remember. I may have used Valentine, said Graf, and you may hate me for it, Ender, but keep this in mind. It only works because what's between you, that's real. That's what matters. Billions of those connections between human beings. That's what you're fighting to keep alive. Ender turned his face to the window and watched the helicopters and dirigibles rise and fall. They took a helicopter to the IF spaceport at Stumpy Point. It was officially named for a dead hegemon, but everybody called it Stumpy Point after the pitiful little town that had been paved over when they made the approaches to the vast islands of steel and concrete that dotted Pamlico Sound. There were still waterbirds taking their fastidious little steps in the salt water, where mossy trees dipped down as if to drink. It began to rain lightly, and the concrete was black and slick. It was hard to tell where it left off, and the sound began. Graf led him through a maze of clearances. Authority was a little plastic ball that Graf carried. He dropped it into chutes, and doors opened, and people stood up and saluted, and the chute spat out the ball, and Graf went on. Ender noticed that at first everyone watched Graf, but as they penetrated deeper into the spaceport, people began watching Ender. At first it was the man of real authority they noticed, but later, where everyone had authority, it was his cargo they cared to see. Only when Graf strapped himself into the shuttle seat beside him, Only when Graf strapped himself into the shuttle seat beside him hid Ender. Ender realized Graf was going to launch him too. How far? Asked Ender. Why is there a hid right there? How far? Asked Ender. How far are you going with me? Graf smiled thinly. All the way, Ender. Are they making you administrator of command school? No. So they had removed Graf from his position at battle school solely to accompany Ender to his next assignment. How important I am, he wondered. And like a whisper of Peter's voice inside his mind, he heard the question. How can I use this? He shuddered and tried to think of something else. Peter could have fantasies about ruling the world, but Ender didn't have them. Still, thinking back on his life in battle school, it occurred to him that although he had never sought power, he had always had it. But he decided that it was power born of excellence, not manipulation. He had no reason to be ashamed of it. He had never, except perhaps with Bean, used his power to hurt someone. And with Bean, things had worked well after all. Bean had become a friend, finally to take the place of the lost ally, who in turn took the place of Valentine. Valentine, who was helping Peter in his plotting. Valentine, who still loved Ender no matter what happened. And following that train of thought led him back to Earth, back to the quiet hours in the center of the clear water ringed by a bowl of tree-covered hills. That is Earth, he thought. Not a globe thousands of kilometers around, but a forest with a shining lake, a house hidden at the crest of the hill, high in the trees, a grassy slope leading upward from the water, fish sleeping and birds strafing to take the bugs that lived at the border between the water and sky. Earth was the constant noise of crickets and winds and birds, and the voice of one girl who spoke to him out of his far-off childhood. The same voice that had once protected him from terror. The same voice that he would do anything to keep alive. Even return to school. Even leave Earth behind again for another 4 or 40 or 4,000 years. Even if she loved Peter more. His eyes were closed, and he had not made any sound but breathing. Still, Graf reached out and touched his hand across the aisle. Ender stiffened in surprise, and Graf soon withdrew. But for a moment, Ender was struck with the startling thought that perhaps Graf felt some affection toward him. But no, it was just another calculated gesture. Graf was creating a commander out of a little boy. No doubt, Unit 17 and the course of studies included an affectionate gesture from the teacher. The shuttle reached the IPL satellite in only a few hours. Interplanetary launch was a city of 3,000 inhabitants, breathing oxygen from the plants that also fed them, drinking water that had already passed through their bodies 10,000 times, living only to service the tugs that did all the walk's work in the solar system and the shuttles that took their cargoes and passengers back to the Earth or the moon. It was a world where, briefly, Ender felt at home, since its floors sloped upwards, as they did in the battle school. Their tug was fairly new. The IF was constantly casting off its old vehicles and purchasing the latest models. It had just brought a vast load of drawn steel processed by a factory ship that was taking apart minor planets in the asteroid belt. The steel would be dropped to the moon, and now the tug was linked to 14 barges. Graf dropped his ball into the reader again. However, and the barges were uncoupled. Graf dropped his ball into the reader again, however, and the barges were uncoupled from the tug. It would be making a fast run this time, to a destination of Graf's specification, not to be stated until the tug had cut loose from IPL. It's no great secret, said the tug's captain. Whenever the destination is unknown, it's for ISL, by analogy with IPL. Ender decided that the letters meant interstellar launch. This time it isn't, said Graf. Where then? IF command. I don't have security clearance even to know where that is, sir. Your ship knows, said Graf. Just let the computer have a look at it and follow the course it plots. He handed the captain the plastic ball. And I'm supposed to close my eyes during the whole voyage so I don't figure out where we're going or where we are? Oh no, of course not. IF command is on the minor planet Eros, which should be about 3 months away from here at the highest possible speed. Eros? What book could that be? Percy Jackson? I don't think so. I mean, that book was in my... That book is in my Kindle. I own that in my Kindle account from my youth. It's 3 months away from here at the highest possible speed, which is the speed you'll use, of course. Eros. But I thought that the buggers burned that to a radioactive... When did I receive security clearance to know this? You didn't. So when we arrive at Eros, you will undoubtedly be assigned to permanent duty there. The captain understood immediately and didn't like it. I'm a pilot, you son of a bitch. You got no right to lock me up in a rock. I will overlook your derisive language to a superior officer. I do apologize, but my orders were to take the fastest available military tug. At the moment I arrived, that was you. It isn't as though anyone were out to get you. Cheer up. The war may be over in another 15 years. And the location of IF command won't have to be a secret anymore. I'm getting a lot of little flashbacks to small things like this thing about the tugboats. Reminds me of this game that I used to play. I think I've told you guys about it. I used to play this game where like I would just draw little ships on a piece of paper. It's kind of like a chess match, but with little hand-drawn dots, and each dot was like a starship, and you could choose like what kind of starship you had, or kind of like Battleship, but 3D in some sense. I had fun playing that with a friend when I was younger. And then I also got reminded of the idea that like someone was stealing Yu-Gi-Oh cards from me. So, another thing that we're being reminded of here. And the raft could be seen as when I was very, very young and laid down with my sister in her crib, which is a moment that I could never forget. Well, I forget everything, but you know, here we are. Yeah, but I think that's a very beautiful moment that we shared. And then also, you know, my wife. Boats, rafts, what have you. By the way, you should be aware in case. Oh yeah. Also, the quote that was said here. This one, the moment when I truly understand my enemy, understand him well enough to defeat him, and in that very moment I also love him. I think it's impossible to really understand somebody, what they want, what they believe, and not love them the way that they love themselves. And then, in that very moment, when I love them, you beat them. No, you don't understand. I destroy them. I make it impossible for them to ever hurt me again. I grind them and grind them until they don't exist. Was a quote that I had in my it was one of the quotes that I had in my quote book because it was one of my favorites. And I've carried that with me my entire life. That's one of my favorite quotes ever. By the way, you should be aware, in case you're one of those who relies on visuals for docking, that Eros has been blacked out. Its albedo is only slightly brighter than a black hole. You won't see it. Thanks, said the captain. It was nearly a month into the voyage before he managed to speak civilly to Colonel Graff. The shipboard computer had a limited library. It was geared primarily to entertainment rather than education. So during the voyage, after breakfast and morning exercises, Ender and Graff would usually talk about command school, about Earth, about astronomy and physics and whatever Ender wanted to know. I remember going on a road trip with my dad, and as we were driving, I would ask him 1,000 questions, and I'd be like, why, just just trying to figure out the world. And above all, he wanted to know about the buggers. We don't know much, said Graff. We never had a live one in custody. Even when we caught one unarmed and alive, he died the moment it became obvious he was captured. Even the he is uncertain. the most likely thing, in fact, is that most bugger soldiers are females, but with atrophied or vestigial sexual organs. We can't tell. It's their psychology that would be most useful to you, and we haven't exactly had a chance to interview them. Tell me what you know, and maybe I'll learn something that I need. So Graf told him. The buggers were organisms that could conceivably have evolved on Earth. If things had gone a different way a billion years ago, at the molecular level there were no surprises. Even the genetic material was the same. There was no accident that they looked insect-like to human beings. Though their internal organs were now much more complex and specialized than any insects. They had evolved an internal skeleton and shed most of their exoskeleton. Their physical structure still echoed their ancestors, who could easily have been much more like Earth's ants. But don't be fooled by that, said Graf. It's just as meaningful to say that our ancestors could easily have been very much like squirrels. My ass feels dirty. If that's all we have to go on, that's something, said Ender. Squirrels never build starships, said Graf. There are usually a few changes on the way, from gathering nuts and seeds to harvesting asteroids and putting permanent research stations on the moons of Saturn. The buggers could probably see about the same spectrum of light as human beings. There was artificial lighting in their ships, ground installations. However, their antennae seemed almost vestigial. There was no evidence from their bodies that smelling, tasting, or hearing were particularly important to them. Of course, we can't be sure, but we can't see any way that they could have used sound for communication. The oddest thing of all was that they also don't have any communication devices on their ships. No radios, nothing that could transmit or receive any kind of signal. They communicate ship to ship. I've seen the videos. They talk to each other. True, but body to body, mind to mind. It's the most important thing we learned from them. Their communication, however they do it, is instantaneous. Light speed is no barrier. When Mesa Rockham defeated their invasion fleet, they all closed up shop. At once, there was no more of a signal. Everything just stopped. And to remember the videos of uninjured buggers lying dead at their posts. We knew then that it was impossible to communicate faster than light. That was 70 years ago. And once we knew it could be done, we did it. Not me, mind you. I wasn't born then. How is it possible? I can't explain philodic physics to you. Half of it, nobody understands anyway. What matters is we built the Ansible. The official name is Philodic Parallax Instantaneous Communicator, Jane. But somebody dredged the name Ansible out of an old book somewhere. And it caught on. Fine, I'm gonna have to watch Psycho-Pass. Because they talk about the Sybil system. Yeah. And we know how I feel about everything. But somebody dredged the name Ansible out of an old book somewhere and it caught on. Not that most people even know the machine exists. That means that ships could talk to each other even when they're across the solar system, said Ender. It means, said Graf, that ships could talk to each other even when they're across the galaxy. And the buggers can do it without machines. So they knew about their defeat the moment it happened, said Ender. I always figured. Everybody always said that they probably only found out they lost the battle 25 years ago. It keeps people from panicking, said Graf. I'm telling you things that you can't know, by the way. If you're ever going to leave, I have command before the war's over. Ender was angry. If you know me at all, you know I can keep a secret. It's a regulation. People under 25 are assumed to be a security risk. It's very unjust to a good many responsible children, but it helps narrow the number of people who might let something slip. What's all the secrecy for anyway? Because we've taken some terrible risks, Ender. We don't want to have every net on Earth second-guessing those decisions. You see, as soon as we had a working Ansible, we tucked it into our best starships and launched them to attack the buggers' home systems. Do we know where they are? Yes. So we're not waiting for the third invasion. We are the third invasion. We're attacking them. Nobody says that. Everybody thinks we have a huge fleet of warships waiting in the Quamet Shield. Not one. We're quite defenseless here. What if they've sent a fleet to attack us? Then we're dead. But our ships haven't seen such a fleet. Not a sign of one. Maybe they gave up and they're planning to leave us alone. Maybe. You've seen the videos. Would you bet the human race on the chance of them giving up and leaving us alone? Ender tried to grasp the amount of time that had gone by. And the ships have been traveling for 70 years. Some of them. And some for 30. And some for 20. We make better ships now. We're learning how to play with space a little better. But every starship that is not still under construction is on its way to a bugger world or an outpost. Every starship with cruisers and fighters tucked into its belly is out there approaching the buggers, decelerating, because they're almost there. The first ships we sent to the most distant objectives, the most recent ships to the closer ones. Our timing was pretty good. They'll all be arriving in combat range within a few months of each other. Unfortunately, our most primitive, our outdated equipment will still be attacking their homeworld. Still, they're armed well enough. We have some weapons the buggers never saw before. When will they arrive? Within the next 5 years, Ender. Everything is ready at I have command. The Master Ansible. I just farted. When will it? I farted at the moment it said, when will it arrive? I hate so much. I'm gonna smoke. Give me a second. I'm back. Hello. Within the next 5 years, Ender, everything is ready at eye of command. The Master Ansible is there, in contact with all our invasion fleet. The ships are all working, ready to fight. All we lack, Ender, is the battle commander. Someone who knows what the hell to do with those ships when they get here, when they get there. And what if no one knows what to do with them? We'll just do our best with the best commander we can get. Me, thought Ender. They want me ready in 5 years. Colonel Graff, there isn't a chance I'll be ready to command a fleet in time. I remember when I was watching, when I was like investigating the CIA and everything, I used to tell Ian that my favorite book was Ender's Game. And I really liked everything. And I don't know if it was like them worrying that they wouldn't like it. So he ended up saying that it was like a children's book or something. Which it is. I just thought that was funny. Why is it funny? Because F-U-N-N-Y. Graf shrugged. So, do your best. If you aren't ready, we'll make do with what we've got. That eased Ender's mind, but only for a moment. Of course, Ender, what we've got right now is nobody. Ender knew that this was another one of Graf's games. Make me believe that it all depends on me so that I can't slack off. So I push myself as hard as possible. Game or not though, it might also be true. And so I would work as hard as possible. It was what Val had wanted of him. 5 years. Only 5 years until the fleet arrives. And I don't know anything yet. I'll only be 15 in 5 years, Ender said. Again, being out in the real world is a lot of work. I'd rather just read and talk to you guys as the world burns. And interact. And I was listening to this one song and it was kind of saying how like I leave like a little piece of myself in every place I go. It sucks to like have the forces of gravity, kind of like how this explained having the forces of gravity move you from place to place to place. But the idea of being connected with the world and actually being able to leave a little piece of myself and knowing that it'll have an effect on the world is really cool. I've always liked the idea of ripples. But yeah, like I don't really see how to marry the concept of me being here and talking to you guys the way I do and the rapture and my place within the rapture outside of just doing this, you know. And then I just pop out of nowhere. I'm like, hey, what's up? You know, kind of like Peter and Valentine, you know, Demosthenes and the Lock, which is also a fascinating concept. This book is really good, okay? It brings a lot of concepts to the forefront. Nice for me. And I think that was kind of explained here, like when it said like we're the third invasion. I was thinking of the idea of like how this book was kind of like implanting ideas in my head of like morality, fatherhood, geopolitics at an early age. Man. Going on 16, said Graf. It all depends on what you know. Colonel Graf, he said. I just want to go back and swim in the lake. After we win the war, said Graf. Or lose it. We'll have a few decades before they get back here to finish us off. The house will be there. And I promise you can swim to your heart's content. But I'll still be too young for security clearance. We'll keep you under armed guard at all times. The military knows how to handle these things. They both laughed, and Ender had to remind himself that Graf was only acting like a friend, that everything he did was a lie or a cheat calculated to turn Ender into an efficient fighting machine. I'll become exactly the tool you want me to be, said Ender, silently. And at least I won't be fooled into it. I'll do it because I choose to, not because you tricked me, you sly bastard. The tug reached the arrows before they could see it. The captain showed them the visual scan, then superimposed the heat scan on the same screen. Like, I was talking to Steven earlier today, and like we were talking about like concept of like how the DSA is like gaining momentum. I think they're gaining seats within the House. But again, it's just strange because like I was thinking, like we were talking, I was thinking of the idea of like communism and like how Zionism is like I said, like the next step, or like what solidifies or like brings communism into, because I think Zionism, like if you're a Zionist, you understand that money is nothing, and like you would see a world where like production is just what it is, you know. Yes, we can mark digits in a graph if we want, but as far as money goes, I think we have an overabundance of everything, and especially people. And I think, you know, Zionism solves for that, you know, because too many people, too many opinions, too many you know, it's weird because like when I say these things, it's like I'm saying them for the first time. I know I've said them before in the past, and I've joked around about like who do we, you know, but where we're at in the Bible, the wrath, the rage, the not feeling safe, the constant pushing by the system is leading to me talking about these things, and it's a thing. The tug reached the arrows before they could see it. The captain showed them the visual scan, then superimposed the heat scan on the same screen. They were practically on top of it, only 4,000 kilometers out. But Eros, only 24 kilometers long, was invisible if it didn't shine with reflective sunlight. The captain docked the ship on one of the 3 landing platforms that circled Eros. It would not land directly because Eros had enhanced gravity, and the tug designed for towing cargoes could never escape the gravity well. He bade them an irritable goodbye, but Ender and Graf remained cheerful. The captain was bitter at having to leave his tug. Ender and Graf felt like prisoners finally paroled from jail. When they boarded the shuttle that would take them to the surface of Eros, they repeated perverse misquotations of lines from the videos that the captain had endlessly watched, and laughed like a madman. The captain grew surly and withdrew by pretending to go to sleep. Then, almost as an afterthought, Ender asked Graf one last question. Why are we fighting the buggers? I've heard all kinds of reasons, said Graf. Because they have an overcrowded system, and they've got to colonize. Because they can't stand the thought of other intelligent life in the universe. Because they don't think we are intelligent life. Because they have some weird religion. Because they watched our old video broadcasts and decided we were hopelessly violent. All kinds of reasons. What do you believe? It doesn't matter what I believe. I want to know anyways. They must talk to each other directly, Ender. Mind to mind. What one thinks, another can also think. What one remembers, another can also remember. Why would they ever develop language? Why would they ever learn to read and write? How would they know what reading and writing were if they saw them? Or signals? Or numbers? Or anything that we use to communicate? This isn't just a matter of translating from one language to another. They don't have a language at all. We used every means we could to think of to communicate with them. But they don't even have the machinery to know we're signaling. And maybe they've been trying to think of it to this, trying to think to us, and they can't understand why we don't respond. That is a beautiful paragraph. I think I'm going to highlight that. If you guys will indulge me, pause for a second. That, to me, could be like a little hello. Can you? Because, like, that thing that was said in Xenocide, you who speak languages, you are such liars. I think that's beautiful. Language is a fascinating concept, and I also hear this thing of saying that an alien doesn't use language because you can have a conversation. Like there was a moment with my mother where like it was kind of tense because we knew that we were being watched, and then like just like we kind of like synced up, and we were on the same wavelength, and we kind of just like giggled a little bit, and then we went our separate ways. But I think that's beautiful. I think I'm gonna save that to somewhere. I'll copy that for later. Or I'll just put that in the notes right now. If I had that book, I'd put it in the book. Could you possibly maybe? Okay. So the whole war is because we can't talk to each other. If the other fellow can't tell you his story, you can never be sure if he isn't trying to kill you. What if we just left them alone? Ender, we didn't go to them first. They came to us. If they were going to leave us alone, they could have done it 100 years ago, before the first invasion. Maybe they didn't know we were intelligent life. Maybe. Ender, believe me, there's a century of discussion on this very subject. Nobody knows the answer. When it comes down to it, though, the real decision is inevitable. If one of us has to be destroyed, let's make damn sure we're the ones alive at the end. Our genes won't let us decide any other way. Nature can't solve a species. Nature can't evolve a species that hasn't a will to survive. Individuals might be bred to sacrifice themselves, but the race as a whole can never decide to cease to exist. So if we can, we'll kill every last one of the buggers. And if they can, they'll kill every last one of us. As for me, said Ender, I'm in favor of surviving. I know, said Graf. That's why you're here. Ender's Game. Yep. I think maybe we'll start from here. Okay. That was chapter 13 of Ender's Game. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I may watch this later and see what was said. Because I never know. Because I watch it as them, I think. And when there's a difference between making a video where I have like agency and I am able to speak things that I want to say, and watching a video and not really opening my mouth and using my agency and losing a little bit of autonomy and becoming none and more them. Going back to that thing of like language versus the alien nature of a language that has no language or has no dialect. Something along those lines. I don't know. Alright, you guys have a good night.